Greetings once again, sports fans. Mike and Kent, Sports Underground back. Vikings preview as football season is among us, Mike. I can't believe it's already going to be the first week of August and training camp's been going on for a week already.
I know, especially with the weather we've been having too. It seems like it snowed until June, and then all of a sudden here we are. It's hot and it's cold, I'm excited for football season. Excited for another Viking season. See what we have here. Have before us for the Viking season. I don't know.
Yeah, a little different feeling going into this year than it was last year when it was just negative. It completely blew up in our faces. We couldn't have been more wrong, which is nice. I mean, although I like to sit here and trash on them, I really want them to be good. I don't want to be so negative. And it's nice to have a little bit of positivity coming off of last year, even if I don't think either of us believe that 10-16 was the real Vikings, but we'll kind of get into that as we go along here. So last year, lots of positives, starting with Adrian Peterson, a much improved defense. The question is, where does Peterson go from here? We have to fill some holes on defense in the secondary and at linebacker. And then, of course, the question that we continually like to pound our head against, when is Christian Ponder going to figure it out, if ever, and is he going to be the quarterback going forward for this team?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest issue we have is when do you cut ties, when do you say is enough's enough. And you don't have the luxury, I don't think, anymore, and I don't know if you ever did in the NFL, of waiting around for a guy.
Right.
Because it's right now, what are you doing for me right now, what are you going to do for me tomorrow?
And I get the fact that they took him, they wanted to have that quarterback to grow with the franchise. And I know it's only been a year and a half, but you read things like in the paper today where he completes our favorite play we love for the Vikings, the bomb 4 yards out of bounds, and he's 4 of 12 in a non-contact scrimmage. That's the kind of things that wonder, is he progressing? Is he getting any better? Or is it going to be a flip of the coin like it was last year?
And we really might be reading too much into it as far as practice goes, but I want him to be so good too. I want him to be the guy.
Right. It should be nice to have the guy.
Yeah, especially when you put that much stock into a number 12 overall pick.
Right.
It is a lot.
Well, and they've upgraded the receiving corps, as everyone knows. Greg Jennings is here. Cordarrelle Patterson is now here. You're hoping Jarius Wright takes another step. Simpson gets a little better. Then you have Rudolph, who is his safety blanket. And it kind of becomes, do we have too much receiver for the quarterback, where last year we didn't have enough receiver for any quarterback?
I think exactly right. I think Jarius Wright might be one of those wild cards that might find himself a little bit of a niche in this team and might be able to fit a nice role that we need. Kind of a small slot receiver we might need, or a different dynamic. Maybe fill the role that Percy left. Obviously not as good, but fill a void a little bit.
Right, yeah, it seems like a slot guy. Patterson looks like the kind of guy that can play in the slot outside, give you a little bit of stretch the field, kind of anywhere. And he's got the tools. It looks like he's big, he's strong, he's fast. But of course, he's a rookie receiver.
Right.
Don't get too far ahead of yourself. And then the veteran Jennings, if he stays healthy, you know what he can do. He's going to fill any role you need at the wide receiver spot. Great hands, going to convert some first downs, and maybe he'll help Patterson and help Wright where we had no leader there last year. And maybe he'll be the guy to get them quicker to where we need him to be.
That's what I was going to say. I think the hidden value in Jennings signing is his leadership and his know-how around the league and how he commands himself.
Right.
And how he carries himself. So
offensive line should be no question marks this year. The guards could play a little bit better, but you've got Phil Lodeholt signed now. Khalil obviously was worth the price of admission, for his high draft pick last year. Sullivan, one of the better centers in the league.
And who saw that coming, by the way?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, 2 years ago, our offensive line looked like you and I could have maybe blocked, and all of a sudden now it's once again back to one of the better offensive lines in the league, as far as not breaking down film on the Panthers or the Buccaneers. But
I think it's something you have to have, too.
Yeah, and if Peterson rushed for 2,000 yards, obviously a lot of that credit has to go to the offensive line. They must be doing something right, whether you notice it or not. So receivers have been addressed. The line is better. Tight end is solid. Obviously the running back is solid. Special teams, the kicking game is very solid. We have a new punter, which we're not going to break down the punter, but Kluwe, who wasn't always that effective, or that splashy, always seemed to get the job done. Been here for quite a few years, we can't really. Can you take a step back from where that guy was though at the end of his time here with the Vikings?
No, I think what it was is people want to blame the hoopla, the attraction around him. I think more of it is they want to save $500,000.
Well, I think so too, and then look what they did with Longwell. Cut him, got a guy who obviously I don't think in their wildest dreams Blair Walsh was going to be that good.
No,
but it worked out, so why not try it again? And it's the punter.
Yeah, if you save a few bucks, and if you lose out on this punter, if he was terrible,
Yeah. You can find another guy off the scrap heap. Yeah.
Go sign an off-duty soccer player. I don't.
Well, Clee was 31st in the league in average last year. So, what's worse than 31st? Not a whole lot.
Right.
One spot. So, and then moving to the defense, here's where, for me, other than Ponder, this is where the big question marks are. Defensive line is set. You draft Sharif Floyd to plug in there to fill some space, take some time away from Kevin Williams. That looks set for now. But we've got some contracts coming up. You've got some age factors there.
Yep. The real question is, what are you going to do on defensive line next year? Which I don't want to spend too much time on.
Right.
There's always the draft and there's always free agency. It sounds like we might have some money to play with next year, especially some of the bigger contracts.
Yeah, Jared Allen's contract being up number one.
The bigger names that are going to be coming off the books, and I don't foresee Allen coming back. Maybe.
I would love to see him back, but like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on this. But what's his value? It's not $18 million next year. I'll guarantee you that.
It's not, and I don't think we're going to end up paying him for his services next year.
They'd probably spend the money on Griffin, something like that. He's young, up and coming.
You maybe give up a little bit, but you save a little money, and you maybe go address somewhere else.
But for this year, it looks pretty set. Robinson and Jared Allen on the ends, and then you've got Guyan, Fred Evans, Kevin Williams, and then Sharif Floyd in the middle.
Yep.
That four mix seems to be okay. I don't see any real holes there.
Yep. As far as moving back, Harrison Smith comes off a great season, does he not?
Absolutely. He's the one stable part in that secondary.
And what scares me is if he goes down is what scares me.
Right. Well, and before you get to the secondary, let's move to the next level, the linebackers. And for me, even as big as the cornerback question is, this linebacker situation looks like it could be a mess.
Yeah.
You've got Greenway on the outside. I don't think he's worth the money they pay him, but he is a Pro Bowler. He's very good at what he does. So he's solid. He's not going to disappoint you.
What I like, you don't have to think about him.
No, you don't. You're absolutely right.
So I like that.
Yep, I agree with that. And then moving to the middle, you either have Desmond Bishop, who you've signed from the Packers on a low-risk contract, injury-prone, as we all know, coming off a hamstring tear, and then Aaron Henderson on the outside wants to be middle linebacker. I don't see the toughness. I don't see his ability to move to the middle. He's capable where he is. I don't want to move him somewhere else and try and confuse him anymore.
Yeah, that's true. He doesn't really have that air of confidence about him. He doesn't put me at ease back there, but it seems like more of a stopgap. Here we go. Here's what we got now. And like I said before, you can't have an all-star at every single position.
No, you can't.
You got to give something up a little bit. It just so happens this year is our linebackers.
Yeah, and middle linebacker, quarterback of the defense.
Yeah.
You'd kind of like to have something a little more set there. And not that Brinkley was going to, set anyone's world on fire, but he was very solid against the run, and they were able to take him out, in the nickel against the pass, and he provided you a little physicality in there. When you don't see physical with Henderson and Greenway, I don't know if that's his game is speed, getting the plays. He's not being there busting up runs, you know what I'm saying?
Hey, here's what my take on it. I'd rather still have E.J. Henderson right now than Aaron Henderson, I think. And
no one wanted E.J. to play last year.
Right. So, I'm rooting for him. I hope he does all right. I think he's going to be all right.
Well, best case scenario is Bishop isn't hurt. He steps up, fills the void. Aaron stays at outside linebacker, where he's fine at. And that, I think Bishop would really solidify that middle.
Yeah.
Some other options, you got Audi Cole, who was drafted last year by us, late round pick, and then the two Penn State guys this year, Gerald Hodges, Michael Muaddi, who I've heard comparisons. If Hodges is healthy, he's got some game to him, but how much can you compare him to someone already in the NFL when this guy's been hurt for a year? You don't really know what you're getting.
And you might see these guys on special teams and try to earn their keep that way. But you keep hearing Audi Cole coming up a little bit on the radio. When you listen to the radio, you kind of hear him kind of doing some good things. But it's one of those things where he's more of a practice hero, preseason hero. Marcus Sherrills comes to mind where he kind of plays a lot in the preseason. You see a lot about him when it comes down to game time. Kind of overmatched.
Right.
But I hope the best for him. But it sounds like the two Penn State guys, Hodges and Matui, sounds like they might be players, but again, boom or bust.
Right.
They're seventh.
And Navarro Bowman's the guy I was trying to get out of my mind here to compare him to the San Francisco linebacker. And that would be pretty high end for these guys.
Sure.
But you like to hear that they have some of the tools in Hodges' case that Bowman would have. But I think we'd all feel better if Bishop just wasn't hurt, stepped up. At least he's been in the NFL.
Right.
He's played the position. Maybe give Cole another year to develop, and then next year it's boom or bust for him.
Yeah.
Or maybe Hodges needs a year to heal from that injury, and maybe he can step into that void at that time.
Yeah, I do actually think we have plans for those two guys.
I think so too.
I think they weren't just 7th round picks to try out and well, it didn't work. See ya.
Right.
I actually feel like all of our draft picks we have plans for.
Well, I think that for the last couple of years, that's the way this team is headed in that direction, where it's not necessarily best player, it's best player in a spot where we need them.
Right.
You know, we're trying to build a little depth, and this isn't great depth right now, but in a couple of years it could be very good
Sure.
depth.
And yeah, I'm not saying a team's never going to go to the draft and be like, well, throw a dart at a dartboard, but we actually sound like we have some players here that are, like you said, filling a need, and not only that, but backing up some of our starters and playing solid, hopefully.
Well, touch on the draft just real quickly about draft for need. I don't think in our wildest dreams Sharif Floyd was going to be available where we picked him. So what do? You adjust, you take him, and then they make the receiver and the cornerback pick to fill needs. And not that defensive line wasn't going to be a need, but they just couldn't imagine him there. And you did both. You got the best player available, and it filled your need. It isn't like we went out and took a quarterback just because he was sitting there when you already had a guy you thought was the guy.
We did a lot of things. A lot of things went right in that draft, I think.
Yeah.
We gave up a lot for the receiver, Patterson, but if he's supposed to be, he might have been the best. He might be the second best player in the receiver in the draft. I don't know. You got to take your chance.
You do. You absolutely do.
And
we're gonna touch on this in a little bit here, talking about Spielman. But let's move to the defensive backs and kind of knock this out while we're at it. Cornerback, a huge question. You lose Winfield, who may or may not be as effective as he was, but from what we have back there, he probably still is better than anything we got. Chris Cook really needs to step up, really needs to develop. And then you've got Xavier Rhodes, who looks like a Chris Cook build type of guy, hopefully with a lot more talent and able to bring that talent to the field quicker than Chris Cook has.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, as a rookie corner, that's going to be a huge adjustment. And we're probably going to expect a little bit more than what he's going to deliver.
Probably.
Simply because of where he was drafted. It's hard. That's a hard position.
It is, and especially the way the NFL's evolved, where it's a passing game, and you're getting tested, 7 out of every 10 plays probably, against some pretty fast, pretty elite guys. And it helps that Harrison Smith's been here for a year. I think it sucks to say you have to have a second-year guy really take leadership of that defensive backfield. But I think the way he plays, it is going to help those guys a lot. He eliminates a lot of mistakes back there.
Well, 2 years ago, our defense, our secondary was atrocious.
It was.
And we went to the middle of the pack last year. And I attributed almost all of it to Harrison Smith and the way he plays and the way his leadership is on the field. It seems like he's always at ease. He's calm. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, nothing really rattles him. No matter what, if he makes a play or misses a play, the next play he's back and it's starting over. Ground zero again.
He gets a concussion. He just smelling salt. He's back out there.
Right.
Tough as nails.
Josh Robinson, the guy we drafted last year in the 3rd round, I believe. I would have thought maybe he would have moved to the outside, but their plans for him to keep him inside and kind of fill that Antoine Winfield role. Don't know enough about his tackling skills, if he can really be as effective as Winfield. But another young guy who looks like he has some talent.
Yeah.
And you're kind of counting on him to be a leader back there, too, in only his second year.
And going back, cornerback's also kind of another one of those positions where you can sometimes find somebody to do the job. Look at some of Seattle's corners.
Right.
It's like, I've never heard of these guys.
Yeah, where'd Richard Sherman come from?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And all of a sudden he's good, but that's just one example.
Right.
Obviously the guys that get drafted high there are usually generally pretty good. You know what I mean?
Well, and you obviously have great expectations for Rhodes taking him that early.
You do.
In the draft.
You do.
So.
And I don't think they did that blind. I think they came with that. They studied that. If they didn't trust him, they'd have took Patterson there.
Right. Exactly. I agree. Yeah, and and then the other safety spot, Jamarcus Sanford. Maybe he's the guy. Maybe he's not. It's kind of a flip a coin with that safety spot, because last year injuries sort of filled that void for us. It wasn't really who won the job in injury. It's kind of and that might be the same case this year. But you'd hope another year, a little more experience, and maybe having Harrison Smith back there does make that position, and Sanford maybe just a little bit better player.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
All right, so that's kind of how things are looking on the field right now. Let's go touch on Rick Spielman here a little bit in that draft. Last year's draft, pretty much a home run. I don't think anyone would doubt that he hit a home run with it. And this year, early indications, it looks like it's going to be pretty positive. And the one thing you have to like about Spielman is that it looks like he looks at a target and he goes and gets him if he wants it. You know, he traded a lot away to get to Patterson,
He did,
but it
yeah.
looks like a guy that, and I'm going to have to trust the scouting staff so far because
Exactly.
they seem to know what they're doing. And he wanted him. He made the moves he needed to get there. He got there and he took them.
Yeah, every pick worked out last year. They really did, and I hope that I can say the same again this year. But you know, if he misses on Patterson, I mean, are we going to be down on him? You know, that's
Well, it's human nature to do
it's
that.
it's tough, you know, and it's tough spot for the guy to be in, and tough spot for the fans to be in. But
you can't expect that he's going to be 100% every year.
No,
It just doesn't
and
work
he-
that way.
and he at least tried.
Right, that's what I said. They addressed the need.
Yep.
They found what they wanted. They went after. They made the move and got him. It sure beats the days where we kept trading back, and then whoever seemed to be there, a la Chris Cook. Okay, we'll finally just take a guy because we can't trade back anymore.
I think our leadership is pretty well set.
Well, yeah, I agree with
you
that
know,
a lot.
you
It's
know-
a whole different Vikings organization than the early 2000s
Sure
with the
is.
Love Boat and all that stuff.
And
you don't
I-
hear
yeah.
about any kind of BS going on basically in the organization, and it probably starts with Spielman and it goes to Frazier.
Sure.
And we're finally getting their type of guys.
Sure,
on
you know,
the roster.
Tice was a glorified player. He still wanted to play, and he was trying to coach.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Denny Green had almost seemed like he had different agendas. Fun to watch. Great,
Absolutely.
great to watch, but probably didn't have that killer instinct you needed to win a championship.
And I think that there was a certain attitude that they didn't care about. They win at all costs, kind of. It didn't matter what kind of character they were bringing in, as
Yeah.
long as they thought it could help them win.
And
where
that's-
now there's a lot more thought into how this reflects on the organization and how you play on the field. There's a way to get a happy medium there somewhere. You know, and hopefully you're not going to see an Aaron Hernandez situation on the
Sure.
Vikings now. It seems like they're not taking that risk that the Patriots may take. We're not seeming to get those kind of players in here anymore.
It seems like we're trying to erase the memory of Brad Childress, the accountant. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
We're finally starting to move away from that philosophy. Not only that, but the players that he brought in, and
Yeah, no
and
Fred
some-
Smoots, hopefully, on
you
this
know,
team.
some of the
anymore.
things that he tried to run into the ground here.
Right.
You know.
And so going to Frazier, let's talk about him for a minute. 3-13 one year, 10-6 the next year. Is either of those the real Leslie Frazier, or is he somewhere in the middle and hopefully going to
Well,
a 10-6 or beyond?
Tough to blame him fully for the 3-13. Probably not all his ideas and his players and all of his.
We can blame Donovan McNabb for a lot of that.
That's-
No matter whose fault that was.
Yeah.
I put a lot of blame on that.
It's almost like that first year was a failed experiment.
Yeah, I think they thought they were better than what they were going to be, and
Sure.
they tried to band-aid it to get to where they had to be.
The second year, this last year, was hopefully more of an indication of where we're headed. I think 10-6 again this year is going to be tough. It's a meat grinder for schedule. It's real tough. It just always seems like it is, though.
Well, and I think we both agree that 10-6 was kind of a fluke. Now, they obviously won the games. They deserved to get the record they got. But I think that was, in our eyes, a year or two down the road. They got there a little quicker than they should have. And I think this year, if they're 8-8, 9-7, it's not a bad thing. It's going to look bad because of what happened last year. But that's the path they were kind of on. 3 wins, 6 wins, 8 wins. And now in the future, they're going to be a consistent playoff team. But if they were 12-4, I guess it wouldn't terribly surprise me because they have to be better on offense. You know, with
Well,
the
I was just
receivers.
going to ask you, are we? Is there a prayer that we're better than 10 wins this year?
A prayer, yes. Realistically, I think 10 wins is the ceiling. Now, you can't, it's hard to look at a schedule before the season and go, oh, this team's going to be good, this team's going to be good. Because every year, 5 teams that are supposed to be good aren't, and 5 that aren't are. But
Does it?
with that said, you're playing a lot of tough teams out there. You've got the Redskins, you've got the Packers, you've got maybe an improved Lions team. You know, and that's just top of my head sitting here right now.
Giants and always tough Steelers.
You
team.
have to go to England to play the Steelers.
Yeah.
How much does traveling across the ocean throw off your season? You don't know.
The difference, it seems to me, once you get to 10 wins, it's kind of an echelon. But the difference between 10 wins, 11 wins, and 12 wins, it seems to me like a lot.
It's a pretty big
Jump,
canyon
isn't it?
between between 10 and 12.
And it's
8 to 10 isn't so much,
No,
but 10 to 12 or 11 to 13, that's a huge difference.
Well,
to get
and
there.
I think that helped with home field advantage and positioning for the playoffs helps a lot with that. But it seems to me once you get to 10, you're like, okay, we're probably in. But you get to 11 and 12, all of a sudden you're a really good team.
Right, exactly.
You know
And
what I mean? When you get to 10, almost anybody can get to 10. You get to 11, 12, 13, you're a team.
Well, we got to 10 playing a fourth place schedule.
Yeah, right.
Now, is the second place schedule that much tougher? In theory, it's supposed to be, and obviously there'll be a team or two that's not as good as what we thought they would be. But you not only have the schedule, you now have a full off season.
Right.
Did we maybe catch people by surprise because of the shortened off season?
Maybe.
And it just so happened that Peterson went on the greatest tear a running back's ever been on, you know?
But take a team like the Steelers. All of a sudden, we match up pretty good against them. Now, I know they lost some pieces, and I know that we gained some, but that's where we're at.
Well, you'd like to measure yourself against the historically good teams.
And
Like when you
are.
think of Pittsburgh,
You think
they're
of-
always
right,
good. If
right.
they don't make the playoffs, you're more surprised than if they do.
Exactly. They're hanging your hat.
Even if we're better than them, until we play them, I always kind of have the Steelers up here. That's kind of a measuring stick.
Right.
And maybe we are past them. Maybe the Steelers have lost too much that we're better than them. But until we play them, I can't sit here today and say we're that caliber of a team.
No, I don't. But I think we match up against them.
I think we do too, and I think we're definitely headed in the right direction.
So do
and
I, yeah.
as I sit here last year, and as negative as we could possibly be, I'm actually really positive about the season, and I don't think 8-8 is a bad record. But what we did last year, people are gonna be upset. And is 8-8 a reason to fire Leslie Frazier? Absolutely not.
My
But there's gonna be
expectations are tempered with Ponder and what he's going to do for me.
Well, I think that a quarterback change would be the biggest reason to look at a 12-4 team versus an 8-8 team. I mean, honestly, we can overcome a little bit of the cornerback problem, maybe the linebacker problem, but if Ponder does not perform, we could be 5 wins, and it wouldn't surprise me with this guy.
You can't patch up quarterback play. You're not going to go out mid-season and pick someone off the scrap. It rarely happens. We found it with George. We found it with Cunningham. Lighting the
bottle 3 times? I don't think so.
Right.
But then look at the Donovan McNabb.
Sure.
Look what happened there. We tried that didn't work. Favre was glorious.
Sure.
And the Vikings have a long and storied history
But I'm just saying,
of picking up old, used up players. But I understand we already got them in place. I get
I'm
that.
saying week 5 or 6, and Ponder's just not doing it. We got to scratch our head and turn this thing around. Week 5 or 6, and we're 2-3 or 3-3, and we're like, we got to make a move here because we think we're pretty good. You're not going to find.
Well, Castle's, that's the reason Castle's here.
I know it is, but
where last year was Joe Webb and very inexperienced, we learned our lesson from that one. But is Matt Castle the guy that can turn a 2-4 season around? I don't know. 3 years ago, I would have probably said yes.
Yeah.
But after the beating he's taken in Kansas City,
as we sit here, I sit here. He might be.
I don't know. But that's the whole quarterback situation we have. If that's the question is, maybe, maybe not. And I would love for Ponder to just prove me wrong.
Sure,
I've been as down on this guy as anyone.
And I want him to be good so bad.
I do, but he just, like you've said before, he doesn't pass the eye test.
No, he does not.
There's just something about him running around back there. He just doesn't look like he's Fran Tarkenton in control.
And you've said it before. I think I took this out of your page. When Plan A goes wrong, there's Plan B isn't even on the radar.
No, it's just forced Plan A.
Throw it out of bounds.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, that's Plan B is throw it out of bounds.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And if Plan A doesn't look good or isn't wide open, it's like, oh God.
Yeah, we have no other option, and that he's definitely got to take a next step in his progression of reading progressions, and just.
I think that comes with maturity, but
right.
We're getting there. And the way this league is, look at how many new quarterbacks are out there that are having success. Luck, RG3, Kaepernick, and Wilson.
That's what's frustrating is that they went from here to there in a hurry, and Connor just kind of. And then up and then down.
But for everyone with success stories, you got maybe a Jake Locker, a Blaine Gabbert. I'm missing a couple. I'm missing some here, but Whedon out of
Kevin Cobb.
Sure, Kevin Cobb. Yeah, right. But
Brandon Whedon very inconsistent as well.
Sure. How about Sam Bradford, number 1 overall pick?
Yeah, injuries probably a little more to do with him, but at the same point, not what they envisioned.
No, probably not.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's just
you need a quarterback to win in the NFL. I mean, look at the Packers. Aaron Rodgers is, I would say, obviously he's their best player, but he's really their only great player. Now, I'm not going to knock Matthews. He's a great pass rusher. But if you take Rodgers off that team, they're terrible. But with him, they can make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Peyton Manning back in the past, a great quarterback covers a lot of faults with your team. And right now, we're trying to cover for the faults of the quarterback.
That's what's scary about Andrew Luck is that team was bad. And I know they tanked. They were bad. But with him last year, playoff team.
Well, look at the Redskins.
Yeah.
For years, they've been trying to buy their way into the playoffs,
right.
and they finally get a draft pick, and he gets them there.
And confidence and momentum, I say it all the time, confidence, momentum is a big deal in the NFL. And when you got the right players in place, it goes a long way.
Well, believing you can win, there's a lot to be said for that instead of going out and thinking you're defeated every week, especially in the NFL.
Sure.
Because all the teams, realistically, even as bad as Jacksonville is, there's not that big of a separation from the top to the bottom.
No.
Any given Sunday. And confidence may be just that thing that puts you over the top, gets you by in a close game. Before last year, would have you assumed you'd have beat the Packers at home to go to the playoffs?
No,
Absolutely not.
But that
they were rolling.
That Texans game was one of them that I look at that really launched us.
But all of a sudden you get on a little bit of a roll, and had Ponder played in the playoff game, we might be sitting here singing a different tune. Maybe he goes to Green Bay and knocks the Packers off, and we think, oh my God, Ponder's here to stay. He finally did arrive. But for every 2 steps forward, there's that step back. Injury's not his fault, but you really would have liked to see him try.
Yeah. Do you think making the playoffs or guiding a team to the playoffs, so to speak, 84 yards a game at a time, did that do anything for him? Are we better off? Where are we at with as far as
if he gets us to the playoffs again, no matter what he really does, you have to like it. Trent Dilfer wasn't flashy, but he got his team to a Super Bowl. Would you take Trent Dilfer out of Ponder, hand the ball off to Peterson, and not screw it up? I would.
Yeah, right.
But
how good does Ponder have to be? I always compare Joe Flacco. Not going to lose you a game, but
Ponder's not even in the same conversation.
No, he's not. But I'm just saying, Flacco's 185 yards and a touchdown, but no interceptions.
I would take that out of Ponder.
Exactly.
That would be great.
Exactly, but
some days he's going to be 302.
Exactly.
And then he's going to be 80.
And you're going to have those games. Yeah. You're going to have to be capable of those games. I don't think he's capable of those games.
No, I don't think so.
And I got a real good feeling we're going to be in the market for a quarterback next year. And I don't think it's going to come out of free agency. You don't see quarterbacks move.
No, the free agent moves don't really work out, too well.
You can every time they say you can make me crow here with Peyton Manning,
right?
Joe Montana moved. I get it, but there are certain circumstances you're not.
But if Manning wasn't injured, there's no way he's not a coach.
No, right, but right.
It
was the time and place. It was the circumstance. We're not going to trade for Romo.
And Tom Brady's not going to be coming in next year to take over.
It's not happening. But quarterbacks don't move.
No.
So we missed the boat on Breeze. I said we should have drafted Brian Mallett, but we'd be singing.
Coulda, shoulda, woulda. Here we are with Christian Ponder, and hopefully next year we're not having this conversation.
Yeah.
We're actually looking forward to him coming back and leading us to another playoff run and maybe even a victory here and there.
I hope so.
In the playoffs.
I hope so. I think, like we said, we're heading in the right direction. We have some young pieces in place, and we have some solid drafts to work with. I think we're maybe 1 or 2 drafts away, but I think we get the right quarterback in place, we're going to be a team to be reckoned with.
I agree. I would like to see another safety on this team, possibly, maybe another linebacker, and then you got to fill in the void of the defensive line for the future. But I think we're closer today than we were yesterday.
Yeah.
And another draft of the last few years by Spielman, and I think we're going to be in a really good position.
Sure.
And I think Frazier, he may not be the Bud Grant answer to our coaching problem.
No.
But he might be a solid coach for us for 5 to 10 years maybe. And you asked me that 2 years ago, I'd have laughed in your face. But I like the way things are progressing, and I'm actually looking forward to the season, hoping that there's a playoff run in this team.
I think so too. I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be close if they're a playoff team, but I think there's still a couple teams that
we're second best in the division.
Yeah. And I don't think that's going to be good enough to get in the playoffs, because I think there's some teams out there that are a little better than us.
And every year 5 teams go in. You don't think 5 teams drop out.
Oh, sure.
We could be one of those teams, and it wouldn't surprise me.
Yep. No, not at all. Not at all. But that's just where we're sitting right now.
But a lot of optimism, and from us, that's pretty positive. I mean, it might sound negative. It was actually fairly positive from us for the first time in a few years. I like the way the team's headed, and I'm going to actually sit back and enjoy this season and try not to be so critical. Just looking at it as a building process, and we seem to be on.
It's going to feel good to go in this year and have some expectations.
Absolutely, I agree with that. So a little Vikings talk there. The first time of the year, we're going to try and do this a little more often now that we have a little better system set up. But time and space, it's harder to come by, as the years go on. So Sports Underground, very happy to be back with you. Hope you guys enjoyed it. He's Mike, I'm Kent, and we'll talk to you very soon.